Welcome back. As I said, it's Media Monday, and last week a rather unusual university lecture or event took place here in Sydney with esteemed academics discussing the topic of TV Nation, what the Wire, House of Cards and Girls can teach us about America. Here to tell us is Dr. Rodney Taveira, lecturer in American Studies at the US Studies Centre, University of Sydney. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, John.
I thought that was a fascinating topic. We keep hearing there's a golden age of American television. You obviously are able to make this into a university event.
Oh yeah, it's something that's really interesting to us at the US Studies Centre because we're all about increasing understanding of the US, and it seems that American content is what consumers are really after. If we look at the sort of rates of downloading, illegal downloading as well, of which Australia is really high up there, it's American content that viewers are after.
Hasn't it always been thus, though? Hasn't American television always dominated?
It has always dominated, but there's something quite different going on here in that there is demand that you get to choose what you want. So previously we had the three networks, a top-down system telling Australian audiences what they were watching. Here it is people going to find exactly what they want, and it generally tends to be long-form American dramatic and some comedy series.
OK, so what do they tell us about America as a society now? What of the individual ones you looked at last week? What was the summary you came up with?
Well, that America is still in love with itself in some way, still in love with its anti-heroes. So the big American TV series that are downloaded or streamed a lot are Breaking Bad, Ray Donovan, who have these kind of anti-heroes at their core.
Excellent show, Ray Donovan. I give that a tick.
Liev Schreiber doing great in that. The shows that I'm interested in is something like The Wire, which is interesting in that it is a TV show made for people to think. It has
there's something new.
Yeah, it's not just this sort of episodic approach where a crime show like CSI, you tune in for an hour, you tune out, it didn't matter whether you miss a week or not. The Wire has an argument.
Now, The Wire has been out a while. In fact, many say that that was the turning point. Some say it was The Sopranos, others say it was The Wire was the turning point for this new era of television.
I think it actually goes back to Sex and the City. So that was one of the earlier HBO TV series. So when HBO, a cable television production company, decided to make its own content instead of just streaming or sports, it decided to go down with a long-form show like Sex and the City. The Wire followed on from that, and it is right at the cusp of moving into DVD sales.
All right, I'm going to just run a clip of The Wire that we're talking about for those of you who haven't seen it yet. No, we haven't got the clip quite yet. We will run it for you a bit later. Meanwhile, we'll continue to just touch on it. You've said it also, it talks about, it's got an economic angle. It's pre-GFC industrial US versus post-industrial. Tell us how a TV show can be so important.
Well, the co-creator of the show, David Simon, was a journalist working for the Baltimore Sun. He worked the crime beat, and he saw sort of inequality in this Rust Belt American city. And his argument is that post-industrial capitalism in the US is making humans worth less, that the institutions that previously were sort of meant to help Americans under the New Deal, say, are actually subjugating them or putting them in a position where this growth between those who are sort of mega wealthy versus a kind of urban underclass, that gap is getting bigger.
Isn't it just doing what books did in the Depression, say John Steinbeck? Isn't it what movies did in the 50s and 60s? They're an artistic outlet for what's happening in society.
Absolutely. The Wire has been called a visual novel, taking its cues from Charles Dickens in particular, who was, concerned with the plight of the underclass in London. And David Simon is sort of using that model to look at an American city, which, when you think about Sex and the City, it was a more glamorous approach to American life, whereas in The Wire, it is nothing like that at all.
But the other thing I noticed, and you mentioned Ray Donovan, which is a very new one, I noticed they're becoming bleaker and bleaker, even as the recovery comes. If you look at the 50s and 60s, Leave It to Beaver and the Happy Family shows, that was an ideal they wanted to live, and now they seem to have a dark view of themselves.
Now Father does not know best. Right? Father can be this diffident chemistry teacher in the case of Breaking Bad, who goes from Mr. Chips to becoming Scarface.
But what does that say about a society that so reflects the underbelly side?
It's interesting because we sort of, at university, when we're talking about the influence of American TV, we say, it's having a bad influence. We're getting inculcated with American values, but it's actually sort of critiquing American values. If this is the outcome, that dad is going to become a massive drug dealer in the Southwest, that doesn't say a lot about the, rosy state of America at the moment.
Are there any shows that are happy that show the other side? Is there any light coming in all those dark, black, bleak shows?
I think there are, well, not so much in the bleak shows, but as in shows like Modern Family that are sort of showing blended family environments, that there are a gay male couple that have an adopted child. So in terms of a kind of personal politics, things are changing in the US, but in terms of an overarching faith in America as this land of opportunity, not so much.
Is there a danger that in this new connected world, the people will get a skewed vision of America? They'll think it's all drugs and the dark side?
Well, yes, but I think that's what attracts a lot of people to watching American content as well, that there's something changed about what the American dream was. Instead of it being this place where anyone can go to and make it, it's anyone can make it to the highest of highs and you can become Beyonce or Jay-Z, which is not what the American dream was originally articulated
I gather
as.
at the conference there came out that House of Cards is watched by the Chinese political elite.
Apparently the 7 gentlemen of the Standing Committee are regaled by one member in particular who tells them stories about House of Cards. It's the 2nd or 3rd most watched show in China, which is really interesting because it presents this back-channeling process going on between a kind of younger member of the inner circle of the Chinese government who is taking part in perverted sexual practices, who is drinking $10,000 a glass cocktails, and the way that he has him trying to convince America to bring a suit against China in the World Court.
No good.
No good.
We've got that clip of The Wire just to remind people what we are talking about, the pre-industrial look at post-industrial America. Here it is.
So your boy's name is what?
Snot.
You call the guy Snot?
Snot Boogie. Yeah.
Snot Boogie. You like the name?
What?
Snot Boogie. This kid whose mama went to the trouble of christening him Omar Isaiah Betts. You know, he forgets his jacket. So his nose starts running, and some asshole, instead of giving him a Kleenex, he calls him Snot. So he's Snot forever. Doesn't seem fair.
Life just be that way, I guess.
So,
One of the complaints about The Wire, and I noticed it then watching it again, is that it was very hard to understand.
Yes.
Again, it was the first of those. You feel you're at street level. You want to be at the street level. Why is it that in the UK we're watching Downton Abbey and the lovely upper class, and yet The Wire and the underclass is what the Americans are doing?
America likes to say it doesn't have class, right? But that is presenting an image of class there in The Wire. And what David Simon did with that show was have a faith in the viewer that he or she will pay attention for 2 or 3 episodes until you get your ear in, so you can understand what is actually being said.
Some of the other shows that came up were Girls, another one which I think I know is picked up by young girls, but it's a very depressing view of female life.
Yes, and an interesting thing came up in the forum was that its most popular demographic is men over the age of 50.
See, that's just sad.
It's strange. They
really
want to
sad.
watch girls. And what we sort of talked about there was the burden of representation that women had. So it is made by a young woman, and she was taken to task for not having African-American representation on that show.
Just tell me, compared to Australia, as I say, they're talking about this as a golden age of American television. As you say, everyone around the world wants to watch it. Really good quality scripts, good quality stories. I think that's why they're watching. You know, they're not seeing the big picture, despite, you know, you can look at it later and explain what it means. What's wrong in Australia? We don't seem to be having a golden age of television, do we?
No, we don't seem to be, and it seems that the most popular shows are taking the kind of form from America that is less prestigious, such as reality TV. That these are the shows that are easier to copy, they're cheaper to copy, and they get a lot of eyes on the screen.
And isn't there an irony in it that the reality shows probably don't reflect as much as what you're saying some of these scripted shows do? That's more the look of what America looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. They're totally scripted, that people are playing to a particular part when they are on these reality shows, whereas shows like The Wire or sort of these other longer form, prestigious American shows have the advantage of having a longer story to tell across a season, and therefore can make complex characters, complex plot lines.
Any trends we're seeing or new shows coming up? True Detective was a hit last year too with Ray Donovan. Bleak again. Anything else coming?
Again, a new season of True Detective will be coming up, where it's a complete reset. It has nothing to do with the previous series.
I'm sure there'll be murders and things again.
Except for those things. Heaps of crime.
Well, fascinating to talk to you. And so we don't have to feel guilty watching any of these series, because we are actually studying American social and economic history.
Absolutely. Worthy objects of study.
Thank you very much. That was Dr. Rodney Taveira from the US Studies Centre at the University of Sydney. Love to be in that class. Wouldn't it be great watching telly all day? So keep watching your Foxtel. We're going to go to a break.